You are listening to the B2B Marketing Mindset with Pete Monfre and Bill Lowell. We want to help demystify marketing to reduce risk, drive more and better opportunities, and grow your business. Are you ready to master marketing?
Well, all right then. Here we go. I am Pete Monfre. This is the B2B Marketing Mindset. So let's get in the mindset, shall we? Hey, listen, have you recently started a marketing services business or an agency or consultancy, or maybe you've been in business a few years and you've hit a ceiling in terms of growth? If you have, then you want to pay attention today because I'm going to share how we went from kind of a little cramped office space above an auto parts store to one of the hottest agencies in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, billing over $6 million in fees. Listen, my co-host Bill Lowell is off today, so you just get me. So lucky you. And so I'm hoping that if you're listening to this out in podcast land, it is a video podcast, so you'll want to subscribe at b2bmarketingmindset.com to see the rest of the story. But I really, this is a pretty personal topic for me, and I want to share it because I think a lot of people go through the same issues in the what I would call the marketing services businesses, the design firms, the digital agencies, photography shops, media production companies, media buyers. I mean, the whole range of interlocking services that form the ecosystem for the marketing industry. They go through the same kinds of challenges, and we did too. And so, in fact, I think the challenges never stop. But so full disclosure, when we started our business, we were very good technicians. We were designers, but we had no idea how to drive growth. We didn't know how to set pricing. We didn't know how to get profitable clients or manage the work through the company. We didn't understand the financial parts of the business. I could write a book about what we didn't understand when we started. And so my wife, let's show a picture, then girlfriend actually, was working at a design firm but was miserable and due to kind of a terrible work environment there. So, I was about 32, I think. We're about the same age. We were in our early 30s. I was fresh out of the University of Wisconsin. Heidi was working at an agency, and we decided we could do it better. Does this sound familiar? Like, hey, we could do this better. But we found out there's a lot more to running a business than being good at the craft, right? And so we started this little design studio, and we took over a rehearsal room in my apartment above an auto parts store. And I actually found a picture of this auto parts store, which for some reason I can't get to show on the screen. But let me see if I can fix that really quick. I don't know why it's not showing, but who knows? But it was kind of a rundown little auto parts store, and we used whatever space that we had to set up an office. And here is a picture of that, and it looks pretty messy actually, but it was so small. And and this is a little an aside, the floor had a giant hole in it that went all the way through to the business below. Like if you stepped on the hole, you would fall through into the business below. But we just covered it with a sheet of plywood. We threw some carpet over it, and we started looking for clients. And so that was the start, right? This was 34 years ago, and it didn't go well. So we quickly found out that doing postcards for the local hospital wasn't really going to pay the bills. And so we really had to change our business model. And, this would kind of end up being a pattern throughout the life cycle of the business, sort of continual change and adaptation. But we really didn't even know where to start, right? And so, I mean, if that sounds familiar, listen on. But, at first we read books and we talked to clients and to try to really understand what they needed. I think we were lucky that we kind of figured out very early on that graphic design by itself wasn't taken that seriously. And I think it still isn't. I think it's seen as decoration. It didn't offer enough value to really have a viable business, the business that we wanted. And so what we found was clients needed help solving pretty tough marketing problems, and they needed more than brochures, and they needed more than artwork. They needed help improving strategies, or being more competitive at trade shows, or improving the things they were already doing, because we started to talk to pretty established companies, and they were doing a lot of things already. So, and they wanted to see better results from what they were doing. It really hasn't changed at all in that regard. Everything else has changed, but that hasn't really changed. So, but we read a lot of books, and we talked to clients, and it took a lot of hubris, I guess, to start a company without any experience. And we kept trying things, and we failed, and we would try something else, and we would fail, and we kept trying, and we kept trying. And I guess, to our credit, tenacity was probably a big part of it. But after a while, we started to realize that, hey, maybe we didn't know everything, and maybe we weren't really equipped to do what we wanted to do. And the truth is, the premise of this episode is how we built an agency. But honestly, we didn't do it ourselves. We didn't figure this out on our own, okay? The secret was to drop our egos, leave them at the door, and then seek help from people with more experience. And so we got tremendously lucky in that area. So that meant kind of surrounding ourselves with more experienced people, including employees. We hired people that had more experience in the business than we did. And we had mentors, and we had coaches, and we had, financial people, and we really just started listening. And we found ourselves winning clients like NML and Harley Davidson and Eaton and Rockwell and Abbott Labs and ABB Industrial Systems, and so many more of these sort of Fortune 100 and 500 clients. And we had a beautiful office down in downtown Milwaukee. Let me see if I can turn that picture on to show that to you. And so this is where we ended up. And it took a few years, and it took a lot of kind of gut-wrenching decisions and soul searching. And here's a shot of, apparently Heidi was sitting in for our receptionist. Another problem was people. We had one that was embezzling from us, so we had to jump in, and then we realized that we had no idea what she did, so we had to start creating processes and systems. I remember discovering the E-Myth Revisited around that time, and it really saved us. But it's a couple shots of the office here. This is the production area, and one of the production areas. But I only see one person in this picture, which is funny, and I think it's Michael. I can't see him quite in this shot, but I want to shout out to some of those people. Anthony Mikes from the Second Wind Network, Dave Woods from Agency Management Roundtable. These were companies that brought together agency owners, non-competing agencies from all over the country, and we would all sit down together and learn from each other. And we would share everything, financials, these were more experienced people typically than us. Bill Lowell, my co-host, was one of those people 30 years ago. Jim Locatelli, look him up if you need a CFO in the Milwaukee and Midwest area. Matt Schultz from Grace Under Pressure, and so many other agency owners. And I'm sorry I don't remember everyone's names and agencies, but because there were so many of them, really. And they shared what they knew, things they had learned the hard way. And in a way, we had coaches before it was cool, right? I mean, we didn't call them coaches. We didn't really have a name for them at all. And to this day, I actually seek out advisors and coaches to help me better understand how to overcome my problems in my business. And that's after 34 years of doing this. I still seek help because I'm too close to the business much of the time. So, and so that's really the secret. Like, it's not a huge secret, is it? I hope it's not a letdown. It's just that we had to come to a realization that we had a lot to learn, and we had to seek out people that could help us. And so I wanted to run through the top 5 problems that I think most of these companies run into. And sometimes you run into it pretty much right away, like we did. We realized that our pricing was just not going to sustain, us. And so, but we didn't know what to charge. We didn't know how it worked. We didn't know who to talk to in these companies, right? We didn't have a clear ideal client profile. We just sort of took whatever we could find and whatever came in. And it doesn't work well. So let me see if I can do this, hit the correct buttons. So one of the big things for us was at the beginning was not understanding our costs. Okay, so this led to underpricing ourselves. We didn't have good sales processes and systems, and we really didn't for a very long time. I think it wasn't until probably 2007 when I actually started getting some formal sales training from Sandler Sales, Brad Massey and Amy Harden, and really taught me a lot about selling. But I had already been selling at a pretty high level. But early on, we didn't really understand our costs. It wasn't something that we really thought about. We bought supplies and we bought computers. And of course, at first it was just X-Acto knives and Band-Aids, but it got more expensive when computers became viable. And so we started buying, so we started with a couple of Macintoshes. And in fact, you can see them in these shots. That looks like a Power Pro, and that other one's probably a Mac 2 Ci. And then there's a giant printer on the left side. It was just a huge printer, a color printer, and it was super expensive. But we did not understand our cost. And so that is something that a mentor, an advisor, a CPA, people can help you figure that out. It's a good place to start, right? And so, in fact, we have a model now that we use with our clients and the folks that I advise and mentor to help understand your cost. Because once you know your cost basis and what your margin is and how much you want to earn, and whatever your salaries are and taxes and everything that goes into it, you really start to understand what you need to charge to stay in business and to achieve the goals that you want. And it's probably a number that makes you uncomfortable, right? And I think another thing we did early on is we priced ourselves low because we weren't very good at selling. It was easier to sell something very cheap than it was to go through the work of understanding how they make, how clients make decisions and how their budgeting is and what their budget is, and really qualifying the client. It was just easier to be cheap. And so we were cheap, and we would end up putting a lot of extra time into the work. And I think we probably still do that today, but because we wanted the work to be good regardless of what we were billing for it. And so at some point, those two ideas, the quality and the price, they had to meet, they had to come together somehow. And it started with understanding the costs. I think the other huge thing, and I think we all suffer from this, are self-limiting beliefs. Like I think early on, I don't know, I say early on, but maybe even to this day, it's still a fight all the time. We have a head full of trash. And what do you do with trash? You put it out to the curb, right? We believe things that aren't necessarily true, and they limit our ability to achieve what we want. I'll give you an example. The price thing. You think that, well, I can't charge that. I don't have enough experience. I'm not worth it, right? It might not be things you verbalize to yourself. It could be subconscious, right? You might think that you're personally not good enough, right? You might be uncomfortable talking about money because the way you were raised, that it was impolite to talk about money, right? But I don't know if you've ever been around a bunch of very wealthy, millionaires. You'll quickly learn that they talk about money effortlessly. It's not a big deal. In fact, you're in business. It's about money. These are things that you kind of have to get over. So what are your self-limiting beliefs? Maybe that that you'll never be able to reach the CEO, or the CEO won't talk to you, right? What's really funny about that is early on is I thought that, I felt that, I didn't think, why would these guys talk to me? Just a young guy. These guys were rarefied, had big offices, big companies and all this. Why would they talk to me? Well, I don't know why, but they did. And it was because I had the courage to call them. And a lot of people just don't even try because they have these self-limited beliefs. And it turns out a lot of CEOs will answer their own phone. Nowadays, maybe not so much. Nobody answers their phone anymore. But if you can communicate the problems you solve and the value that you bring, you know, people at high level jobs have high level problems. They have big problems. They have tough problems. And if you can solve those problems, they are going to be happy to talk to you. They're just people, just like everybody else. I learned this in the music business too. You know, meeting and performing with some of my heroes, I have to admit, I would get a little nervous. But, you know, over the years, I've found that the more successful performer is, the more down to earth they really are. They're just really regular people, just like you. So what are your self-limiting beliefs? You know, those are things that you have to kind of work on and identify. I've got a lot more of them on a list. If you want to reach out, contact me. I'll be happy to send that to you. We don't have a lot of time to talk about all of the self-limiting beliefs because there's a lot of them. But that is one big challenge, is just what is in our heads. What do we believe that's not necessarily true? Bill, my co-host, loves to talk about Mark Twain and the saying that, you know, what you believe ain't necessarily so. And I think that has a lot to do with what limits our ability to grow and reach our objectives. So, and you know, these are all kind of related together, right? Underpricing, self-limiting beliefs, it kind of directly leads to attracting the wrong clients. What do I mean by the wrong clients? Well, there's lots of things that can create a wrong client. It could be a client that's not coachable, that doesn't listen. I think I was probably that person early on, but I quickly started listening. It could be that, you know, you're underpricing yourself, so you're attracting companies that really are more interested in saving money than meeting their objective. And I've gotten to the point where if I find out somebody's, you know, their real goal is to save money, then I say, well, then don't do anything, because you'll save all that money and you'll have achieved your goal. Clients that are just difficult to work with or don't respect you. I don't want to name names, but there was a motorcycle manufacturing company that's really well known, and we did some super work for them. And they were extremely happy with the work, and when it was done, and we had gone way overboard, I think, and we put a lot more time in than we billed, but the work was beautiful. It was all over the world. It was amazing. We helped launch one of the most innovative motorcycle designs that there's ever been. And they brought us into the office. They told us how amazing our work was and how great we were to work with, but we needed to lower our price. We were too expensive for this multi-billion-dollar company. And I was kind of taken aback by it. And I said, well, you know, honestly, we actually lost money on this job, but I appreciate the kind words. And, you know, what do you mean by that? And what she said, I've never forgotten it. She said, listen, there are companies lining up out our door to work with us. And so you need to lower your price or we'll just work with somebody else. And here I'm in my, you know, mid 30s and companies growing like crazy. And I think I was probably a little overconfident, but I said, you know what I think you should do? I think you should go work with those other companies. And we walked away from that client because that was toxic. And looking back, while we were working with them, we worked a lot of late nights. I mean, we were just bending over backwards for these folks. They did not appreciate it at all. They caused us a lot of stress, a lot of strife among our team. We definitely were able to do amazing work, but that is not the complete picture, right? Not a great client for us. Sometimes clients are just too small also. And it's kind of hard because you meet a lot of really good people that you like, and they're just too small. They don't have the resources to go to market. And so even though you might really want to help them, and I have coaching clients that have small agencies, and they're really in that mindset where they just really want to help people, but they end up doing it kind of at their own expense. And so, you know, what is your ideal client, right? Do you have a profile? You know, we hear a lot of talk about ideal client profiles. Everybody knows what an ICP is, but do you actually have one? Do you have it so that you know the size, the title, the revenue, the number of employees, how they perceive the business, how much money they make, the psychographics, their pain points. Do you have a complete profile of your ideal client? And it might be different from the clients that you have right now, right? But having that formality of having it written down and thinking it through and working on it, sometimes that profile is aspirational, but you can map who your current clients are, and then you can map what your ideal clients look like, and then now you're on your way to knowing when to say no and who to pursue, and you can avoid attracting and having the wrong clients. Now, I had this too. One of the things that, and you know, this wasn't learned all at once. You know, it never ends. You're always learning it, right? It's like every time that we compromise our policies to try to help someone out, we somehow end up with the wrong client. We compromise ourselves. We compromise things that we know are a bad idea, but we're trying to help and we're trying to be cooperative, and it doesn't work out, right? And so sometimes it's really hard to say no to a client that you know isn't a fit, because maybe you're looking at your wallet and you're saying, boy, we need this business. Again, head trash, going in thinking that you need the business. You got to close the business. I got to close every deal I can get my hands on. I got bills to pay. You must transcend it, right? You have to. Sandler would, one of the things they would say is, you know, when you're in the parking lot and you're worried and you're thinking to yourself, oh God, I need this business. The mantra is, I have $1 million in the bank and I don't need the business. You say it over and over again until you believe it. And then the other part of that was, and you only need to be brave for about 15 seconds at a time. And so, but I think that saying yes to the wrong clients because you just need the money and you know it's a nightmare client, so you just take the client anyway, I think it's a mistake. It's very hard to do, and sometimes you do have to compromise. There's bread and butter work that you do. You grin and bear it, but overall, you should try to be stable enough and have enough in reserve that you can say no to not end up with a stable full of the wrong clients, because the wrong clients can destroy your team. You lose good people. You have the stress of these clients. Their stress transfers into your business. And you know, I work with my wife, Heidi. Many of you know her, and you can go to heidi-designs.com and find out about her business. But we have been working together for all of these 34 years. And so there have been times when the client was really causing problems with us in our relationship, right? And I don't care how much money they've got. It ain't worth it. And so attracting the wrong clients, super common. If you feel like you're in that boat, don't feel bad. You're not alone. And I'm happy to help. Can't do it in this 40-minute broadcast, but happy to help you work on any of these problems if you reach out. Not having formal SOPs, standard operating procedures. This was huge because as we started to get things right, the business started to grow. And, you know, we went from that sleepy little office and to a much bigger office, bigger overhead, bigger everything, employees, and we really were still kind of running seat of the pants. And I mentioned that we lost our bookkeeper receptionist person, and we found out, and at that time we had a dedicated ERP system that was for specialized for agencies, and we realized that nobody knew how to work it. We didn't know what she did. We were dead in the water. And this person had to go. They were stealing money from us. And so around that time, I discovered the book, The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. Do I have it on the shelf back here? I have it somewhere. But I found this book at exactly the right time, right? And I realized, holy cow, this is the answer. We need to have written processes. And some of the problem too was, as the volume of work increased, getting that work through estimating, through the client approval process, and then through our shop and through production, we ended up having a dedicated traffic manager. That's what they called him then. Maybe they still call him that. I don't know. But managing the flow of work through the agency, it became absolutely crucial. And so we had to become more formal. We had to write things down. Well, this allowed us to, if somebody was sick or we lost somebody or somebody quit or we fired somebody, the business didn't just collapse onto itself. We knew the next person knew what to do. We knew how to deal with that. So formal operating procedures, huge. And so, I will admit it took us several years to pull that together, but we had an operating manual for the agency. And so I really recommend doing that. But again, these are like the most common things that small and growing, not just agencies, by the way, consultancies, all kinds of businesses, service businesses, even manufacturers will have these same problems. I'm more focused on marketing services companies and service businesses, consulting firms, for example, and consultants. But, you can't be too small to have things sort of lined up and to have some level of organization. I'm just a big fan of writing things down. It doesn't mean that it's set in stone, right? You can always change, but having formal SOPs. Not seeking help. Not seeking help. Man, I am the king of not seeking help. And I don't know how I managed to get over that in my early 30s. But we realized, I'm trying to remember, what was reading a lot of books and talking to my college professors and talking to different people. And by the way, the college professors were completely out of touch. They were not that much help. But I think it started with talking to other agency owners who I was friends with and we were doing business with, and they had been in business longer than us. And I got to mention Matt Schultz again. May he rest in peace. He was an awesome guy and a friend for 30 years. And they had an agency up, I think, in Cedarburg. And they were called Grace Under Pressure, but it was spelled GRACE, Grace, and then SUNDER, Sunder, and then Pressure, PRESCHER. So it looked like three people's names, but it was Grace Under Pressure. And so I learned so much from Matt, and over the years, it was really hard to see him leave us, but that's where it started. And then I realized that, my gosh, there is so much that I don't know. And then I just started, and I can't remember how we found the people. And Bill Lowell was one of them who really helped us. My uncle Bob Cooper taught me how to tie a tie. I didn't know how to tie a tie. I had a $1 million company. I didn't know how to tie a tie. And so they helped. And even our employees, shout out to Bernie Baum. We hired people that were older than us, that had really been around the block, and we listened to them. And we had really good luck with ex-military also. And so we were learning from our employees. We were learning from our clients. I mean, there are clients out there, Rick Cadilli, Jerry Batzner, Bruce Buchanan from Buchanan. I can't remember that. I don't know what they're called now. Oh, Flannery Buchanan. That's one of their operating units, but they're the largest family-owned death care business in Indiana. They own cemeteries and funeral homes and flower shops and casket companies, and they're just a massive company now. And Bruce and I were business partners. He was a photographer then, and they're just smart people. And so I just want to throw those names out there. I don't know if they'll ever hear this or not, but that's where we learned. And we were humble enough to say, look, maybe we don't know everything, and there is a lot more to this running a business thing than we thought. And so those were the big things, really. Of course, there's a lot more problems, but these are the ones that I see over and over in my business. And so let me take a minute here. We'll give you my final thoughts.
final thoughts.
So I think every business hits a wall at some point, and I think you hit multiple walls over time. So sometimes that wall is maybe you've been in business a year. Sometimes the wall is you're working for an employer and you want to make the jump to self-employment. There's your first wall right there. How do I do it? How do I find clients? What do I need to get set up and to start doing this? Sometimes, after about a year in business, sometimes 2 years, you run into a problem where your revenue seems kind of stuck. Like you just can't push past $700,000. You want to get to that $1 million mark. That always seems like it's like there's some kind of barrier right there. And then other times, and I think COVID taught us this, you might have been in business for 20 years and then suddenly the market completely changes, right? And so you hit these walls, and that's when it's time to consider a mentor, an advisor, a coach, some kind of partner who can help you save years of trial and error. Okay, in our case, mostly errors. Lots of expensive errors. I remember another one trying to hire the right new business development person. My gosh, that cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we had one guy that was super good at having lunch, but really not good at closing business. And so we kept him on a lot longer than we should have. And so that was another really hard lesson to learn. And even hiring creative people, that was another series of hard lessons where, we had to figure this out. So, we could have advanced even faster. And I think we actually could have made more money. We had a lot of throughput in the agency, but we could have been a lot more profitable if we had just listened to people earlier. And, what we paid in fees to these folks has really been returned tenfold, maybe more. And so I think sometimes finding the right person can be difficult. We'll do an episode on that, I think. But our company has lasted 3 decades. It's smaller now. Our clients are different. Almost everything about our business is different. It's been a continual process of learning from people and being inquisitive and continuing to read. It's a never-ending cycle. But now I get to return that privilege by helping, smaller marketing services businesses and consulting companies and clients just become bigger and more profitable and skip some of that expensive learning curve. And I think that's a pretty good deal if you ask me. So if you enjoy the program, we do this every Thursday, usually with my co-host Bill Lowell and special guest. Let me just look really quick, if you'll bear with me. We'll see who our guest is next week. I always should look ahead of time. It looks like we don't have a guest next week. Really?
Jeremy Shear?
Oh, we do actually. Jeremy Shear is going to be the guest next week. So he has a really interesting video business, but it's not what you're thinking. We'll let him talk about it. But we always have amazing guests on the program, and you can see our past episodes, and you can subscribe at b2bmarketingmindset.com. You can subscribe on YouTube. We stream to LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. What am I forgetting? Instagram? Are we streaming to Instagram? Twitch. And then, of course, the audio goes out tomorrow to every place fine podcasts are consumed. So you can find us everywhere. And so we're always just trying to help you save money. We're helping you understand marketing so you can make better decisions. And it's what we do. We want you to make better decisions. I think there's a lot of chicanery that goes on in our business. And so that's why we do it. And it's free. One of the few things that are free, if you can believe that. So we'll see you next Thursday, and have a great week.
You've been listening to the B2B Marketing Mindset with Pete Monfre and Bill Lowell. Add to the conversation by commenting, sharing, and liking. And don't forget to subscribe and check out the links in the comments. Learn more at b2bmarketingmindset.com.